They've been on Brekkie Central already, but Uel and Shannelle are with us here today. So why don't we give them a warm welcome? We're going to bring them up. No, you can sit there. They can in the middle. They can sit in the middle. This is water, by the way, in case you're wondering. We do things pretty fancy here at Epping Church of Christ. I take zero credit for it, but here it is. So I just thought we'd start really quickly by sort of telling these guys, because I think some of these guys are curious, how do we actually know you people? Like, you're pretty famous, you're on TV, people recognize you on the streets, but why don't I flash up? So, by the way, this is their, that's an official photo. There's their Twitter and Instagram handle down at the bottom, so follow them, tweet them, fan mail towards them would be great. We're all good. I think we're sort of like tied by this.
A double date, but on display. Like, this is what we normally do. This is what we normally do.
That's it. So we're going to just flash up a couple of wedding photos from Uel and so that's them on their wedding day. Did you know your wedding video is actually on YouTube? Some fans posted it up online and said, so if you want to see their wedding day, go on YouTube, look up Uel and Shannelle. That's us with them on their wedding day, and then that's them with us on our wedding day. So so we've known these guys for, actually hasn't been all that long, but it hasn't been very long. Yeah, but it's one of those friendships where you feel like, there's something that God's really connected us together, and it's been a real blessing and a privilege knowing them. That's good. That's good.
Just testing it.
That's all. Yeah.
All right, so we wanted to ask you guys a few questions to get to know you both on a personal level. So, what were you guys doing before MKR?
Well, before MKR, we were leading youth and youth workers at our church up in North Ryde. And before that, we were getting married and traveling the world and doing missions here and there. So that was something exciting. But yeah, just doing youth work.
Great. And what was the process like entering the show? And was it a long process? Was it hard? What was involved?
I mean, we sort of applied as a joke. We didn't think that it was actually going to happen or that, we would actually get in. So we sort of applied on the very last day. Really quickly, we started getting calls back, and, every single stage was just really, really quick. But for us, it was pretty hard because we, were really attached, and we sort of just started our youth group, youth and young adults, and we were like, are we meant to be leaving? Are we meant to be doing this? And it was a lot of confusion, a lot of prayer involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious for those of us who have watched this show or even seen some clippings and photos that these guys do have a real flair in the kitchen. So we thought we'd ask you guys, where does that come from? Has there been a history in your relationship of cooking for people, or was it like a family thing, or like what's the origin of that?
I think for Shannelle and myself, we got to know each other. We've been friends for a very, very long time, but we really got to know each other when we were both in university. And I had moved out of home, and at the place that I was living at, every week on a Wednesday night, we'd have friends over, and they'd come and they'd just fellowship with us, and we'd share life. We'd cook for them. We were just friends back then, but we were always in the kitchen for some reason together, and that's where we bonded.
Is that how you guys met? Give us briefly, how did you guys get romantic?
Met probably, not romantic, but we met 2005 at a youth camp. We were both in the same activity group, so the first photo we have together is us at Messi Games at a youth camp. Both had braces, really, really unattractive, and we just got stuck in the same friendship group for quite a while, so I guess things blossomed from there.
Maybe that's a word for the youth here in the room. Like, you could meet your future spouse at your youth camp, so get along to that.
But that's not what you do.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Jess and I were beneficiaries of, Uel and Esther's cooking for their friends. I think they tell us that we're the worst, like we're not very helpful to them in terms of them improving their food, because we're just always saying that it's amazing.
Yeah, Jess is way too kind.
It's always amazing.
But yeah, we do have a photo here of the very first meal that Uel and Shannelle cooked for us. So this is...
Do you remember this?
This was at...
Vaguely.
This was at Uel's house in Rouse Hill. And the first course was your homemade mushroom soup. It was like the best mushroom soup I've ever
she's very, very generous with
It was legit amazing. Really amazing. And then I think the the middle one is, I think it was a crispy salmon. Let me just... Salmon with butter and white wine sauce with crispy barbecued skin. And lastly, for dessert, it was a moist dark chocolate fondant with vanilla ice cream. So that was like the first time you guys cooked for us. So any favourite ingredients that you like to cook with?
Uel loves his pork belly. He's always
Love
joked about
pork belly.
opening a restaurant that just serves like skin stuff. So like
just
not
the
human,
skin.
no, pork skin, duck skin, things like that.
Salmon skin,
Yeah.
potato skins, lots of skins.
Unhealthy.
Yeah, we've got a couple of photos of the meals that you plated up. Yeah, we've tasted. Yeah, so these are some of the mains and some dessert, sweet stuff for the sweet tooth people amongst us. So it's pretty incredible just watching that. And apparently all the recipes are available online. So if you ever want to try out something that they've done, just hop on Yahoo 7 something
We were joking that for our next double date, we'll try and make one of your dishes for you.
That'd be a pretty good idea.
I don't know if that's a good idea, but yeah.
Sort of getting specific in terms of your actual My Kitchen Rules experience. What would you guys say was the most challenging moment or moments? And on the other hand, what were the most sort of highlight, memorable moments of your My Kitchen Rules journey?
I guess starting from the highlights, the whole process was such a whirlwind. We were in the middle of this world, separated from our real world, our real family and friends. So that was really hard. But at the same time, we met a lot of incredible friends along the way as well. I think we didn't expect people to be nice. We thought they were all going to be, competition face and judgmental. But at the same time, we made lifelong friends. And that was something that was really rewarding. Just, people that we wouldn't have never met otherwise, I guess.
I think the hardest thing for us probably was when we went in, we believed that it was something that God was calling us to and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we weren't ready to let go of the things that we were currently doing, like the youth and in being involved in the church. And I think there was a period while we were on the show that we were doing both at the same time. And it got very tiring and it was very difficult and everything was failing and nothing was really working out in the competition and also at church. So I think we really quickly came to a realization that we had to say, God, we trust you with one when you ask to do the other. So that was something that was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just about the whole filming process, I know these are a few questions that people have asked me, so I thought I would ask on your behalf. So when did you guys actually film the show? Was it close to live or...?
Not close at all. So we finished filming in December last year. Finished filming the finals, all that kind of thing. So we kind of had a break from that and let that go and we had to relive it all again. So it was a very weird experience.
Okay. The next question, I don't want to make trouble. I don't want you to break your contracts or anything, but do you know who the winner is?
Yes and no?
We know the top two, but they filmed two endings. So they film one ending, one person winning. They film another ending, someone else winning.
It was really awkward.
It was really awkward because you got to cheer, and then the person you think should win, you cheer louder for, and then so it was a bit awkward. But we don't know who actually wins, so we're kind of safe there.
Yeah. And is it really weird watching yourself on TV?
Really, really weird. Yeah. I realised I had a weird kind of voice and I do strange things that I thought my mom only used to do, but I do too. So.
And I didn't realize I had such an Asian accent. I was convinced that I was full-blown Aussie. And then I was like, well, what is with that? What is with my voice? Why do I sound so Asian? And that was a big wake-up call for me. So yes, it's very strange watching yourself on TV.
There's also, if you spotted the bus ads of Uel and Shannelle in the back of the bus, I swear Uel's eyes have been dramatically shrunken to make him just accentuate his Asianness. I think,
to reiterate.
yeah, they just sort of assume that
people didn't know.
that's it. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a bit of a skeptic in terms of reality TV, in terms of the word reality is used quite loosely, I think. Is what you see presented to us on the media pretty accurate in terms of the emotions that you went through, the things that you said, the dynamics between the team, or is it being sort of quite heavily edited? What's actually reality?
Is it sensationalized? Are the mean teams actually not that mean in real life? And are the nicer teams not that nice in real life? I don't know.
Well, I guess everything that happens is dramatized 100-fold. So if you're slightly mean, they'll accentuate that and cut out all the things that you said that were nice. I mean, you have like hundreds of hours of footage and they've got to put it into one season of a TV show. So definitely they leave things out and portray and cut things the way that they want viewers to see, I guess.
But that said, I think a lot of the things that we were a part of, and even all the tears that you've seen on TV and stuff, it's sometimes you think, dude, you're just cooking a meal, like, stop crying about it. But you've been in a pressurized environment for so long. You haven't seen your friends and family. Yeah. You just want to get out of there, and tears are definitely, a byproduct of those things. So some parts are real, some parts are, I mean, when you see the mean people on TV, behind the camera, they say whatever they want. So I guess they express their true emotions, whereas to your face, they probably wouldn't say some of the things. So yeah, I guess some of it's real, some of it's not, but at the same time, they say what they say. So.
And were you surprised at any point about what they said behind your back?
I think we were really lucky because no one really said anything negative towards us, only our food, and that's kind of understandable, I guess. Our food wasn't always perfect, so we didn't take it to heart.
Nice, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, in that sort of high pressure environment where your every move's being filmed and you know that you're sort of in a competition, was it hard for you guys to make close friends with your contestants?
Yeah, I think at first it definitely was. People don't know who to trust, don't know if you're making friends with them just for, to make allies or things like that. But at the same time, I think we just made an effort to be genuine to people and really go out of our way to help others, even if it was to the cost of ourselves, I guess. And through that, I think a lot of people warmed up to us and we didn't really make any enemies, thankfully.
Yeah, well, we'll get back onto that topic a little bit later in the interview. But I thought we'd take a little bit of a break there and move on to some more fun stuff. Because I know that, you guys know Uel and Shannelle as the cooks, as the TV personalities. But there's, one of the things that Jess and I have found is one of the biggest things that has changed for us as we go out with Uel and Shannelle now is that they get stopped in the streets. People ask for their autographs. And so we're the ones behind the camera taking photos of them with strangers and all that sort of stuff. But as you guys could probably imagine, with fame, there's also a dark side of fame, right? People love you, they want to take photos with you, but there's also people that don't like you and aren't the hugest fans of you. And some of you guys may watch a show online or on American TV called Jimmy Kimmel. Have you guys heard of him? He's an American late-night talk show host. And one of the segments that he does is called... here are just some photos. We'll scroll back to that. That was very dramatic, wasn't it? Or the emotion and drama. One of the segments that Jimmy Kimmel does is celebrity mean tweets. So basically the concept of celebrity mean tweets is that he gets celebrities to read out the mean comments that some of the Twitter trolls and online haters have written and said about Uel or about them. So we thought, I did a bit of a search online and used the My Kitchen Rules hashtag and managed to find some Twitter trolls.
Mean tweets.
So one of you guys, I'm going to flash them up one at a time. Why don't you guys just take turns read them out about yourself. But I do have to ask that there's 6, so the last 2 have to be read out by Uel specifically. Okay, so you guys can pick so why don't we start with, I think this one's it's fairly harsh actually, yeah, we'll see.
That's all right, can you see it?
You see that? Yeah.
Yep, I remember this one. So, dear Uel and Shannelle, from Lee Smith, I'd prefer to watch wet paint dry in a blizzard. Sorry, your personality is sending me to sleep. Z.
Oh, gee, that's harsh, man.
Fair enough.
Let's keep going. Similar sort of theme. Yeah.
This one's from Colonel Kickhead. Oh no, not Colonel. Colin.
It is Colonel.
Oh, Colonel.
Yeah.
There is paint flecking off my bathroom ceiling. That is eminently more interesting and watchable than these 2.
So tough.
It's tough. You weren't expecting this, right?
Yeah,
Church is supposed to be
Thanks
a
a lot,
place
guys. You guys are really encouraging.
Let's get going.
Really, they couldn't have gotten a better team to represent New South Wales. These newlyweds are really awkward. From Smiley Face.
Smiling assassin. All right, next one.
Friend. Is anyone else cringing when they call each other darling?
That's just mean. She's probably lonely. Anyway, let's keep going. I didn't say that. These 2 are you, Uel. Take it away.
Oh, Uel, what a mega dork. But he means well.
And finishing it off.
OMG! Uel might as well give everyone diabetes while you're at it. Cry face, cry face, cry face.
Yeah, well, hopefully...
That was pretty hard. Is that the end now?
Make our guests feel welcome here.
That is... So they're lucky that... So, I mean, obviously, so there is a flip side to all of this, which is that for every mean tweet that these guys got, they got 100,000 letters of fan mail. So we thought we'd, let's reverse some of those, oppressive curses that we've just spoken over you. And we'll do the same thing. Should we make them read it out again about themselves, or is that just that's too narcissistic? Maybe not. Okay. I love these ones, actually. So the first one is pate, more like patasty, which is one of Uel's dad jokes. And then she says, marry me, Uel. I think she's about... I went into her Twitter profile. She's probably about 12 or 13, so...
Stalker.
I did. I went into the profile.
You're friends with her now on Twitter.
It's research. That's what it's about. And so there's a follow-up. So I engaged... I talked to her online, and she said to me, I can't tell if it...
Goodness.
No, this is good. So I can't tell if it makes me happier or sadder that his wife is just as bloody lovely. I want to be in the middle of their love. So, kind of awkward.
There's definitely something
There's something, out of context, maybe.
out of context.
Jess, you want to read the next one?
So, Uel is a 10 out of 10, yes? Yes.
It's a very creepy voice, man.
Really creepy.
Yeah, tracks a broad fan base, that's for sure. This is from Aaron. She says, my mum loves Uel too, says he eats like a chipmunk, which in her language means he's adorable. Hashtag Team Darling. Let's get through these two as well. This one's from Facebook. So it says, some of the other couples could learn a thing or two about decency and plain old niceness from Uel and Shannelle. They are the pick of the bunch. So, so we're going to, there's a couple more here, but I thought we'd just look at them real quickly. Because I think that they say a lot to us about the way that you conducted yourselves on the show and the way you related to people. So I'm just highlighting that last one in particular from Channel 7. As you guys were eliminated, they said, au revoir, Uel and Shannelle, a nicer couple would be hard to find. So,
There's
what...
one last comment as well from one of the surfer dads, I think the younger looking one. It says, if the kids that I teach could have half the morals and characteristics that these two have, the world would be a better place. That's pretty strong. That's pretty good. That you made that much of an impact on everyone on the show.
So, what was your strategy or your mindset coming into the competition that you think allowed you to have that sort of impact on people? Because I think we see the opposite. We see a lot of people who are quite, widely hated and all that sort of stuff. But what was it that sort of allowed you to make that sort of positive impact on the people around you? Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me personally, I think for Shannelle as well, is we went into this competition. We had no idea what we were doing. My parents were a little bit sort of edgy about us actually going on. They said, your life is going to be displayed. Are you ready for that? Are you sure that's something you want to do? And at the start, when we actually entered the show, we weren't sure if this was the right thing or not. We felt a calling from the Lord to do something like this. But at the same time, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And I remember the first interview we had with a producer, and she would say, okay, can you try and say this, but in your own words? And so I'd say, okay, that's fine. She'd say something like, she was talking about our youth. And I said, okay, our youth they're full of the Spirit, and they love to pray and worship. And she said, no, we can't use that because no one understands that. And I was like, oh, fair enough. Our youth is like this and like that. And she eventually said, okay, just say this. Say after me these words. And I was like, inside of me, there was something that was sort of conflicted. I was saying, God, are you sure you want me here to say these things that some of them I don't even really feel, some of them I don't really mean. And I want to just say, no, I can't do it. And sometimes I did. But as I was praying about these things, when we got into the show, the Lord gave me a passage from 1 Peter 3. And it was a really random passage. I read it, and it was about, wives, don't adorn yourselves with jewels. And I was like, oh, maybe this is for Shannelle. But as I read into it and I just sat upon that word, I really felt the Lord saying to me, live your life in a way that is pleasing to me. Don't worry about what you say so much. Don't worry about trying to include Jesus in every sentence. Don't try to proclaim me through your words, but live it out, because that's one thing they can't change. And I think that was something for us that got us through those moments when it was like, that isn't what I mean. They used it in a different way, but my life shows something completely different. We were in an environment where everybody is sort of, this is where we belong. I belong here. I belong to be in this competition. I want to win it. I'm the best cook. And we came in thinking, we're just here because God put us here. I don't even know if we should win. When they'd ask us questions like, do you believe you should be here? Are you going to win? We'd answer them with like, maybe, we're not sure. And you can't say that. No one's going to back you if you're not sure. And I think that was the biggest thing for us, that we just realized that it wasn't about what we said so much as about living it on the inside and living it and being the people who we are on the outside as well.
I think, sort of on that question of like strategy and, what other people were doing, I think everyone else, they're all in this competition for themselves. And it's quite clear that they'll do anything to get ahead and do anything to backstab others so that they look better. And I guess that was one thing that we knew from the beginning we didn't want to do. We were like, there's people all around us, you're friends with them on the bus, and then the minute you get on screen, you don't want to say something nasty about them, and it's not really what we felt. So I guess the whole process, we just asked God to continue to, give us his heart for the people. Not just, we could look broadly and think about all the millions of viewers who would watch it, but we could look at the person right in front of us, the producer that was producing us, the contestant that was right next to us, and just ask God, how can I love this person, even if it means that we're at a loss, I guess. Yeah.
And did those times where you said you were quite conflicted in your faith, like they're telling you to do one thing and God was telling you to do another thing, like did that happen quite often, and how did you and yourself, I guess, find peace through that confliction?
I think for me personally, because the producers on the show, they sort of become your best friend. So in behind the scenes, they are like, hey buddy, how you going and stuff. And so when you actually get into the place where you're in front of the camera, when they ask you to do something, it's very hard to say to a friend, no, I don't want to do that. Whereas it's easier for you to say to someone that you don't like, no, I don't want to do that. But if they're someone who have tried very hard to become your friend, it's hard for you to say, no, I can't say that, or that kind of stuff. So I think there were moments when we had to say, no, we don't want to say that. No, we actually can't say that. No, we have no thoughts on that.
And I think they grew to respect that as well.
Very quickly
I think
they grew to respect that.
They had the contestants that would sort of say anything and knew that, we wanted to really keep our dignity in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and so I think that was something that they quickly learned. But apart from that, like we knew that God had placed us in that place and it was in his hands. Yeah. And so everything that would happen, we knew that he would take care of it. It wasn't going to be, I wasn't trying to be someone, but I was just saying, I'm going to be myself, and God, you take care of the rest. If they want to portray me in a certain way, just hope the footage not come out. I don't know. I was just praying a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And overall, was it quite a testing time in your marriage as well? Like growing with each other, because you're with each other 24/7. No one else is there. You didn't see family and friends for a while. Was it quite hard, growing your marriage, and did you feel quite tested during the season?
Yeah, for sure. We had such long hours sometimes, and both of us would be super cranky and grumpy, and, we just had to learn to understand one another and realize that we're both going through the same thing. We're both going through the same stresses and, same trials, and to really try and understand each other a lot more. And I think it definitely strengthened us in a lot of ways. Yeah,
and I know on TV you see us and we're happy and we're loving, but we're just like everybody else. We do have our moments of weakness, and I remember there were moments when we were in our apartment and I was really frustrated. I didn't want to do it anymore, and I was sick and tired of the hours, and I was tired of having to perform every day. But I think recognizing that Shannelle was going through the same thing, and she was, holding up her end, and she was being positive, I was like, you know what, I've got to remember why we're here. We're not here for ourselves, and therefore it gives you a bigger boost to really understand this is something bigger than myself, and I really have to do this. So that got us through a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah, well, I found this quote from Uel in an interview that he did. So he said, it was a lot of pressure, and you were tempted to just lose it and start crying or yell at each other. But I'm glad we were able to stick together, because if we didn't, we probably wouldn't have made it through in one piece. So I think, that's obviously not just for the competition, but life in general and marriage in general. It's pretty clear just from these last few questions that you've answered that for you, God and your faith is not a Friday night thing. It's not a job that you do. It's not a Sunday thing. This is your life, right? It bleeds into every aspect of your interaction with people. How did you? What's your I guess testimony? What's your story to come to know God? Like, was it a straightforward process? Was it sort of smooth sailing, or were there bumps in the road and detours and all that sort of stuff? Yeah.
Testimony. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my parents are missionaries, so they've been missionaries from before they were even married. They met on a boat called the Doulos, and they had me just off the Doulos, and then we went back on as a family of 3. And from then we've been moving around a lot. I've got a younger brother as well. But I've always grown up knowing about God and going to church and doing all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it was until we moved to Australia, and that we moved to Australia in about 2002, and I started attending this youth group. And at the youth group, I had an encounter with the Lord that I couldn't deny, something that was very real to me at the time and still very real to me now. And it changed the way I saw God, because I used to see God as something that my parents did, something that they followed. But for me, it was sort of distant. And I made a promise to myself that I would never ever do mission work. I would never ever do ministry. I resented God for a lot of reasons when I was younger, and I resented God for making us poor, and for making us move around and having to leave friends all over the world. And I remember just being really just against God for quite a while when I was younger. But when I attended this youth group, I had an encounter with God, and from there I started to grow in my relationship with God. But when I graduated from school, I moved out of home, and I just started living my own life, doing my own thing. And I think that promise that I made to myself when I was younger started to come to the forefront, where I said, I want to be rich one day. I want to make it in the world. I want to do my own thing. Yeah. And I started to go for that when I graduated from school. And I started to do whatever I wanted, partied a lot, did a lot of things that I wouldn't, I'm not very proud of. But at the same time, my parents never stopped praying for me. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing. I had friends praying for me and I had parents praying for me. And so I never was able to completely escape. I always knew in the back of my mind God was real. And every time I would think about God, it would send a shiver up my spine, because I knew the life that I was living. But I tried to forget about it and live my own life. But it was only one night, and trust my dad to know how to talk to me in a way that only I would understand. He sent me this email one night. I was living out of home, and he sent me this email, and in this email was a testimony of seven youths from Colombia or from somewhere in South America who had a vision of hell, right? And he said at the bottom of that email, "I'm praying for you, son." And that was it. And so I read through that whole email, and I was shivering in my boots after I read that. I was like, wow, that was very, very graphic. It was very, very confronting. I think my dad did it out of love for me, but it was a bit of, a frightening thing. And from that moment, I just got on my knees and I prayed, God, if you are, actually real, and if you actually do love me, then speak to me. Because I believe that you're real. But, do you actually notice me? Do you actually know about me? Do you actually care about me? I got on my knees and I started praying in my room, and I said, I'm not going to get up until you say something. Like, whatever it is, I don't care. Something small, something big. And after about, half an hour to an hour of praying, the Lord started flashing just images of my friends in front of my eyes. I didn't really, my eyes were shut, so just in front of my mind, I think. And these were friends that were part of our youth group back when I was in year 12, year 11, who all fallen away since then. And he spoke to me quite clearly, start something in your house. Reach these guys in your house, just love them. And at that time, I didn't understand what that really meant, but that also led to even how I met Shannelle, with cooking for people on a Wednesday night, inviting people over, just saying, how you doing, sharing life, not even about God, how are you doing, and sharing how I was doing in terms of my relationship with the Lord, and not expecting them to understand it, but that was okay. And I guess from there, gradually coming, it was a long process. I mean, I know the Lord at that point asked me to surrender a lot of things to him. Surrender, this part of my life and that part of my life. And it took a while for me to come. It wasn't like an instant, all right, everything dropped off and I was back in church. But it was sort of a wrestling match that I had with the Lord, saying, okay, I'll give you this, but you give me that. And eventually I realized that I can't say that. I have to give him everything. But that came after a few years. So, yeah, but that's my testimony.
Yeah, for me, I didn't grow up in a Christian family, so my brother's there in the second row as well, and both of us had started attending youth group when we were, I was in year 10, he was in year 7. We got invited by a friend, and both of our parents, they grew up Catholic, and then they sort of changed to Buddhism, so we had all the idols in our house, and that was the reality that we grew up in, running around in the temple gardens and things like that, so it was interesting. But we started attending youth group, and the first time I walked in, it was different to anything I'd ever seen before. The music was different, what they were preaching was different. I was used to, really kind of stoic kind of church that I'd grown up in the Catholic church, but this was completely different. I saw people who actually loved God, and I was like, what is this? That day I raised my hand to give my life to Christ. I didn't really know what that meant at that time, but a couple of weeks later we were at a youth camp. I think it was a similar youth camp to you. And same thing, really had an encounter with the Holy Spirit and knew that God loved me for the first time in my life. And this was something that completely, changed my heart, completely changed who I was. But at the same time, it was really hard to continue to move through, being a Christian in school and things like that. So my idea of Christianity throughout high school, year 10, 11, 12, was very religious. So it was, I got to read my Bible every single day, I got to pray every single day, and then I never met that requirement, so Sunday would be repentance time, and then I'd do the same cycle again. Yep. And it got tiring, honestly. And, we got to the end of high school, and same thing as Uel, we pretty much nearly everyone in my grade fell away from God. We started partying, started hanging out with, our uni friends, our high school friends, and living a life that was completely separate to God. I think I remember telling God, I've got this under control. I'll just put a little toe here, a little foot here. And the next thing I knew, the enemy had control of my life. And I was in a place that was completely separate to God, and I didn't know where my faith was. And that was probably the darkest year of my entire life. Just knowing that God was real to me back in the day, but he was no longer real in my life. And I was chasing things of the world that were not satisfying me. What was interesting was, God just works in a funny way. So my old youth pastor sort of called me up and he was like, I really want to catch up with you at uni. And I was like, okay, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, where have you been? Why haven't you been at church? What are you doing with your life? And so I was like, I'm ready for that. I'm ready with all the defense and all the comebacks. And he came up to me and he was just like, how are you going? And I was like, yeah, good. My life's fine. And he just cried. He literally just broke down in front of me and he was like, I remember, the first time you came to Christ, and that was one of the biggest joys of my entire ministry. And I don't know what it was that he said that day, but I think I experienced the Father heart of God through him. Just that God was saying to me, I don't care about all the stuff you've been doing in the last year, just come back to me. And that was something that was really powerful in my life. And it was no longer a religious thing, going to church and doing the routines of it, but there was this Father heart of God that was impacting my heart, and I had a relationship with him, and that changed a lot. And I guess, then we started that fellowship group at Uel's house, and we're just growing together and slowly surrendering every part of our lives to him. And of course that still goes on today, and continually dealing with the things that the world tries to get from you. But I guess knowing deep down that, God has so much love for us no matter what. Yeah.
Wow.
Coming off that was amazing. Thanks so much for sharing your testimonies. Coming off from that, since you came back to the Lord, how, do you relate to God now, and what has God, I guess, taught you over the last 2-3 crazy years of your life? Sorry, this is just not even on the script. I want to just hear more from you. As a summary. Just as what is something that God's really pressed on your heart, and what are you passionate about?
I think upon both of us sort of coming out of that season of our life and giving our lives back to Christ, we went straight into youth ministry pretty much. So we were serving quite heavily, really involved in the old church that we were at, and we were, I guess, really going hard for God in what we thought it was. But what was interesting was we were once we get married, all that happened really quickly, and we're we're going to go and save the world and go on missions and go to like Africa and, help the orphans and all this kind of stuff. And we had all these big dreams and ideas of what we thought God wanted us to do with our life. So we were like, okay, we got married. And then we're like, God, where do you want us to go? And then we were like, in a whole bunch of signs anyway, led us to a place called Kansas City in America. So we're like, hey, Kansas City, yeah, there's this youth with a mission school there. So they do 3 months there and then they go out to a developing country and serve. And we're like, yeah, that sounds like us, we want to be missionaries, that kind of thing. That whole thing fell through, but we still felt God leading us there. So we're like, God, what are we supposed to do in Kansas City? And in Kansas City, there's this 24/7 house of prayer there called IHOP, so International House of Prayer. And we found ourselves there. We're like, hey, God, yeah, we're going to go there and, do a school and then do outreach in the local community. And when we got there, God was just saying, rest in me. And honestly, it was probably the hardest season of our entire life. We were really people who were just doing people. Like, we serve, we do. And then suddenly God was like, okay, I'm going to put you here for 3 months at least. And you're just at a 24/7 house of prayer. And learn to love me, learn to abide in me.
And there was no public transport. We were in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't go anywhere. And I think the first week we were there, like,
cried a lot.
if you go somewhere difficult, like on a mission trip, you can tell yourself, okay, I'm here for a week. I'm going to give it everything, and I'll, give it everything, and then I can go back home. But we were there for 3 months, and it's really hard to tell yourself that when, day in and day out, all you do is sit and pray. And I was like, God, I don't do this. I don't sit and pray. Like, I can't sit and pray. I talk to people. I go and minister, but I can't sit and minister to you. That's something that's not on my list. That is not on my grid. I can't do it. And I think the Lord really had to ingrain that into us, that this is what I'm calling you to do with your life. Not to serve, not to go do missions, but to love me, to actually sit at my feet, to worship me. And I think it was a tough wake-up call for us, especially being newly married. I didn't have any boys to run to when things got hard. She didn't have any of her girlfriends. We had to sit and work it out, and I think that was a bit difficult. But knowing that God was always there with us and having to rely on Him 24/7, that was, I guess, a really, really big blessing in disguise for us.
Yeah, I think we realized that throughout all the years of ministry, our identity had become found in what we did and in everything that we thought defined who we were. And going into that place, we realized our identity was only found in Christ and was only found in that place where it was just us and Him. And I was like, God surely can't be pleased with me if I'm not doing anything. And that revelation of just God saying, I'm pleased with you even if you just sat here and prayed to me for the rest of your life. And I think that's, the greatest commandment, to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, maybe paraphrased. But yeah, I think that was something that God was really teaching us at that season.
In that season, what did you learn about prayer and worship and how important that is to the Christian faith as well?
I think for us, we've always known prayer was important. Sort of that if you pray, things can happen or things might happen. But I don't think we really believe that when you pray, things happen. And I think being in that place and not actually being able to do anything, I remember thinking about friends back home. Because when we left to go to Kansas City, we had friends who were so close to coming to the Lord. And we were like, God, if you take us away, what about these guys? I care for my friends. And I think we forgot that God is in charge of everything, not us. We can't do anything. We're powerless. If God doesn't want to use us, there's no need for us to actually be there. And I think going to Kansas City and just praying for them and seeing miracles happen in their life that we weren't really even a part of, except for prayer. I think it really woke us up to the reality of prayer, the power of prayer, and recognizing that it's only obedience that really moves the heart of the Lord. When we are obedient to God, when we just love Him, things happen.
You should tell them the story about Emily.
Oh, well, sorry, quick story. Sorry for you guys who think that, watching pain is more interesting. But I had a friend, and she was a friend from school, and I'm not from school, from uni, and we used to party a lot together. And when I started coming back to Christ, she knew that I was a Christian and all that kind of stuff. But when your kind of spheres start to change, you don't really hang out as much anymore. But she was always someone that was quite dear to me. And so while we were over in Kansas City, because we didn't have anything to do but pray, we started making long lists of people to pray for. And then she was one of the people on my list. And I was praying for her. And I in my heart, this is the beauty of prayer. The prayer, your prayer's power doesn't depend on your faith. That's what I believe. Even if you have no faith, God can still work. And I didn't have any faith that she would come to Christ, to be honest. I prayed and I said, God, like, I'm just sort of praying because I've got time, so I'll pray for her. And but I was like, you know what? She's a lost cause. She's not to be slack, but she's so far gone that I don't believe my prayer's going to do anything.
Yeah.
But one day, randomly, I got a Facebook message and she said, hey, Uel, like, you won't believe what happened. And I said, try me, what happened? And she said, last night I was sleeping and I was having this crazy dream and Jesus appeared to me and he spoke with me and I've never felt so loved in my life. I woke up, I was crying and I think I gave my life to the Lord in my dream. I said, really? That's ridiculous, Like, you wouldn't believe it, but I've been praying for you. I left out the part that I didn't believe it, I've been praying for you. So much faith, all that kind of stuff. But time and time again, we saw certain things like that happening. Even with our closer friends that we left when we went to Kansas City, we saw just miracles happening in their life. And we couldn't attribute it to ourselves anymore. We couldn't say, well, that's because I was there for them, or that was because I said that to them. It was only God. Yeah. And it, once again, just gave us that confidence that, Lord, you are in control of everything. And as we are obedient, you just bless. Not just us, but the people around us as well. So, that was a really, really big thing.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, that's incredible. Like just seeing without the side of you guys without the apron, it's like, what's behind that, which is incredible. So, I mean, with all of that in mind, like, what's next for you guys? Like, where to from here? Because I know that for me, if I was in your position, I would write off the publicity, take as much of that fame as possible and just, like, start a restaurant. And if I'm honest, I think that's what I would try to do. Like, is that what your plan is? Like, what's next for you guys?
Well, it's been pretty interesting. So from the beginning of this year, we knew the show was about to come on air and that there would be a lot of publicity attached to that. So we were like, we've always had ideas of starting this kind of restaurant, that kind of shop or food truck or, for us, I don't know, we just think a lot. But from the beginning of this year, we would have ideas and for some reason, like every week, it would have no lasting power. We would be like, yeah, this is such a good idea. This is the best idea we've had. And then, a couple of days later, we're like, but is God really in this? And, the whole, like all the other contestants, we even emailed past contestants and stuff. They're all like, make the most of this opportunity. This is a once in a lifetime kind of thing. Nothing gets handed to you on a silver platter, and you gotta go out and do it yourself. And we really wrestled with that because we were like, okay. So on one end, I guess the world tells you, you go and make things happen yourself. You go and do things yourself. Nothing gets handed to you on a silver platter. But we looked and reflected and. I mean, our whole audition process was pretty much a joke. Like, we did not think we were going to get in. And we were like, who put us in this position in the first place? Because if we believe that it was God and we believe that God put us here, then why do we now kind of go, okay, God, thanks for that. I'm going to go do my own thing now. And I'm going to go and pursue what I think are my, culinary dreams or whatever it is. And I think constantly surrendering that. And honestly, right now we're waiting. Like, we're, sort of asking God, if something comes out of this in terms of food and things like that, then you got to make that clear because also that would be really hard to run a restaurant, 6 nights a week and just be away from family and friends and things like that. But at the same time, if it's not you, don't open those doors for us. We want to do your will. Yeah, and I think apart from that, like it has been very, very difficult coming off that show and getting a lot of. I guess even just hearing from other people what they're doing now and what they're pursuing and the doors that are open for them and also having open doors in front of us and having opportunities and having to say, God, is this you? And if it's not, then I don't want it. I think it's been a very, very frustrating process for both of us. We've sort of been every day wrestling with, okay, God, what now? What next? Where do you want me? What do you want me to do? Every day praying, God, okay, open our eyes, give us a vision, show us something. And I think, in the past couple of weeks, I've been talking to Adrian about this as well. God just really slapped me in the face and reminded me again, what have I been teaching you from the start? That it's not about what you do. Remember what you are called to be. And that's a lover of me. That's it.
And I think, for the past couple months, I think I've been forgetting my primary calling and saying, God, what next? Am I called to be a chef? Am I called to be a TV personality? Am I called to be this or that? I don't know. I was like, what next, God? I'm excited for what you have. And I think God just reminded me again, I'm calling you to love me. Is that not enough? And I think that was a big hit to my heart. And, I had to repent for that and say, God, I'm sorry for forgetting you in all of this. But the Lord is faithful, and He's been bringing us back to that reality. And, I think for us, we're getting to a place where whether we do something out of this or not, God has blessed us with this opportunity, and it's been a fun ride. Seeing yourself on TV, it doesn't get old. It's really weird. But if that is it, then thank you, Lord, for that opportunity, and we're satisfied. We want to go back to loving you and doing what's in front of us. Loving the youth that we have and being obedient in that kind of way.
Yeah. I think a lot of the times when God moves in our lives, He doesn't. Well, what we've sort of seen is God doesn't often move in a linear kind of way. That one thing leads to another thing and leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And sometimes, you even see with people in the Bible that God brings you on this massive detour that you think, this possibly can't lead to what you have as a calling for my life. For example, Joseph, right? He's like on the way and then he gets chucked into jail. And he's like, surely this is not what you have planned for my life, God, that you have detoured me somewhere and all these kind of things. And sometimes we think one thing leads to another. So even with this journey, we're like, yeah, this must lead to the next thing, which must lead to the next thing. But it was like, okay, God, what is the calling that you've put on our heart from the very beginning? And what were the things that you were trying to teach us through this process that we just want to, I guess, grab a hold of and continue to move forward in anything that you have for us?
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I think, just your whole way of making decisions like that has impacted Jess and I so much. Just learning that prayer is like God actually talks to you, like He's actually still alive. It's not just, it's just amazing seeing and relating to God in that way. I want to give the audience now an opportunity to ask a couple of questions. I know we don't have heaps of time left, but some of you may have burning questions that you want to ask. So I'll grab one of your mics if that's okay, and then maybe Jess can pass on the mic to. Does anyone have particular questions? Just shoot up your hand. I'll come around with a roving mic, and any brave souls want to start us off? Maybe our interview's been that comprehensive, which is covered everything.
You're a very good interviewer.
30 seconds. Closing that window.
It can be for silly questions. It doesn't have to be.
There is one over here.
Hi guys, just a quick question. If you had a chance to catch up with any other Christians who kind of been in that world as well, like Kate Brax, and what sort of things have you learnt? Firstly, have you met her, and what sort of things have you learnt from her in terms of comparing notes of being in that world and being a Christian witness in that world?
No, we haven't particularly met her, but we actually we were at Today FM, and one of the producers there wanted to catch up with us. We found out he's a Christian, and there's this ministry in the city called Christians in the Media, so we found that really awesome that I guess there's people out there who are intentionally trying to make an impact in the media and trying to be a light and a witness, because it's really hard. Especially for him in a radio station like Today FM, which is very crude and all sorts of things, that he needs to stand out and sort of be a light in that area.
Yeah, I think for us, sort of stuff that we touched on before as well, I think we realized again that it's not about repeating over and over again that you're a Christian and repeating over and over again, just the Christian jargon that I guess we're so used to talking about. I think for us that was a really huge thing, because we're so used to talking to our youth and the people in the church that understand these kind of things, that when you go into a place where no one really understands it, you sort of have to readjust the things that you say and just really live your life the way that you would want people to see Christ in you. And I think, it's a very simple thing. I think a lot of you guys have heard this already, but your life is the biggest testimony. The way you walk is tons louder than things that you say. So I think in the media especially, because they've heard it in Australia, everybody's heard Christianity, everybody's heard about Jesus. Well, I think most people have heard about Jesus. So I think it's really about the way that you live that really makes a difference in the way people actually perceive who Jesus is, the person of Jesus.
Cool. I've been given instructions from our producer that time is up, apparently. But the good news is that Uel and Shannelle will be hanging around for a little bit after the service, perhaps. So if you want to grab them afterwards and ask him some questions, that would be great. There's one final surprise that I want to end with on this note. One of the things that I think Uel would that Larry would really love about Uel is that apart from his passion for cooking and his love for God, he actually also plays the ukulele. And so here's a photo of Uel and Shannelle on. See if we can. That's Uel there. This is a picture of Uel and Shannelle. They were at Fitzy and Whipper on Nova, and Uel did sing a song that he composed on live radio. So we do have a ukulele here with us, plugged into the sound system. So can you still remember the song? The lyrics are on the lyrics are going to be on the screen. Maybe you could just grab a mic for. We take our ukuleles very seriously here at the church, so. There it is.
Do you have all the lyrics?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
No, you should.
The whole thing.
Thought we're gonna smash it out of the park. Instead we got smashed by a lot of bad luck. Did anyone else see the size of that truck? It looks like we are in lots of trouble. Manu needs subtitles, he's hard to understand. Whenever he talks, I just nod and pretend. But all the ladies love him and give him a 10 out of 10. Maybe our kitchen doesn't quite rule. Should have sent us to a better cook in school. No time for hating, gotta keep plating more food. Now that it's all over, it's really quite sad. No more reusing old jokes from my dad. Knock, knock, who's there? It's definitely not Pete and Manu. Boo-hoo.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Let's give Uel and Shannelle another round of applause. Thanks so much. We do apologize for the slightly longer service, but we're going to move straight into a time of communion and offering. It's one of the things that we believe is so important in the life of our church. Not just meeting together and offering our songs and hearing a word, but remembering that the body and blood of Jesus has been broken and shed for us. That Jesus is alive today, but he died so that we may have life and life to the full. So if you are a Christian, if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus Christ, we do invite you to come to the table at your own time and partake in the offering in the communion together. And as we do that as well, actually that's for later on. So why don't I pray for us, and we're just in your own time when you come to the table. So Father, we give you so much thanks, Lord. We are grateful to you that the life that we've just heard, that Uel and Shannelle have lived and are living, and the life that we get to live as followers of you, Lord, is free, but it came at a price. We thank you, Lord, that you shed your blood and you broke your body for us so that sin would no longer be a barrier for us to come to know you. So as we approach the communion table this evening, help us to be both thankful and in remembrance, Lord, of the things that you have done for us on the cross. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So just in your own time, when you come forward and partake in the Holy Communion together.